Hello and welcome to AssemblyTV studio. My name is Riina Nieminen and I will be hosting Fireside chat today. Now here as my guest I have Benjamin Särkkä.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, you are a founder and also cyber whisperer in Disobey.
Right.
What is a cyber whisperer?
I got tired of all of the different cyber stuff that's going on. Like, cyber overall is this abstraction level on top of everything else, and it doesn't really mean anything to anyone. So I just figured I'd put it as my LinkedIn thing or tagline, and people have been going nuts about it. Like, put cyber anywhere, and it makes you something special to people who don't know what they're talking about. I'd much rather talk about the practicalities of things, or actually dig deep into what matters instead of just trying to hide it behind an unnecessary abstraction level. So I'm trying to demystify cyber into actual parts that can be managed instead of just having it inside of this big umbrella or blanket concept that's really hard to grasp or do anything about. It's like cybercrime isn't really different from normal crime, or cybersecurity isn't really different from normal security. It's just a buzzword that's used for marketing, and I dislike when people are misled with marketing buzzwords. So I'm a cyber whisperer.
It's like provoking maybe. Okay, and you're a founder of Disobey. So what Disobey does?
Disobey is a hacking convention that tries to promote people's interests. So we try to take something that someone's passionate about and then facilitate that to something that they can then present or can do a workshop about. So we're trying to inspire people to do things and to be better. I don't know. It's many things to many people, and it's this conference that has grown from this random idea we had 3 years ago, actually, at Assembly, and we started thinking of maybe we could do hacking conference in Finland. Maybe there would be interest. So we did this proof of concept with a really low budget. Just pushed it through in 4 months for Ravintola Lampa in 2016, and we sold out in like 45 minutes after we opened the doors. It was insane, and everybody was really happy, and the feedback we got was really, really good. So we figured maybe we'd do this again, but we need more space because I don't want to be in a situation where people don't get in. I want everybody who wants to come to be able to come, right? So we went to Kattilahalli, and we almost sold out that as well. I'm happy we didn't, so everybody got in that wanted to. But we're doing it again this year in Kattilahalli in I forget what it's called, but I'm hoping we won't sell out. But if we do, then we need to move to a bigger venue next year. But yeah, so we're trying to find weaknesses, find vulnerabilities in software, and talk about things like they really are, not how they're presented. Try to cut through the buzzwords, try to cut through all of the unnecessary complexity, and just take people and computers and see what we can accomplish. How we can break things in interesting ways, I suppose. That's part of it. I was talking to this guy from this Finnish locking company yesterday. It's called Lukoton, and they have this new lock that you can unlock with your mobile phone. I'm trying to convince them to bring their lock to our conference so we can try to see if we could actually break it. And then if we do, that would actually benefit the company as well as the consumers, because they will know what weaknesses their lock has, and they can fix that before they start pushing it out into the market. And consumers will get a more secure product. So that's essentially what it's about. We're trying to uncover problems that people haven't noticed yet. Kind of like being an FDA or like a Food and Drug Administrative part for security things or digital things, because People are so used to the fact that when they go to the store, they don't get poisoned from their food, or when they start their car, it doesn't explode, because that's like really well regulated, and it's a lot of testing goes into stuff before it can get into an actual product. But almost none of that is mandatory for most of digital stuff. So unless we're talking about some very clear use cases. But for like normal consumer products, there's no stamp that says this is actually secure. This won't be bad for you if you use it. So we're trying to at least highlight the least secure ones that we can get our hands on and try to accomplish a better paradigm, I suppose, with how security is seen or how insecurity is seen. So taking off the wool from people's eyes, I suppose, in terms of how insecure a lot of things are.
Okay, and are you helping just your clients, or?
No, we are a completely non-profit organization.
Oh, okay.
So we are not trying to make money. We are not trying to do anything besides a public service. We just want people to have the knowledge to make the best decisions possible. So essentially, it's I don't want to call it altruistic, but it's for the benefit of society by the community, and I think that's valuable in and itself without monetary compensation for it.
Okay, and how big is your company?
Oh, it's not a company. It's a non-profit organization. It's your
organization.
I think we have around 20 to 30 volunteers. It changes because people come in and go out. So somebody can come in and do something for a month or 2 weeks, and some people stay on for longer and are more involved with a lot of things. So I think the core group is around 17 people, and then we have like a changing amount of volunteers that come around.
Okay. And what is the most interesting part for you in all this?
Just meeting people, talking to people, and getting information about things, and being able to get excited with other people about like things they're excited about. That's really fun to me, to get someone to get to the point that where they want or where they need to be or where they want to be, even though they might think that they can't get there. So just to give people a boost or try to help them to somehow accomplish something that they may not have thought that they could accomplish. I don't know, it sounds really idealistic.
Yeah, well, knights on a horse maybe, but
yeah, but I mean, it's also a lot of hard work, and it's also like it's tough at times. It's not all fun and games all the time. So there's that, but still, it's fun to do, and I meet a lot of really interesting people and hear a lot of really interesting stories. So there's a lot of products I won't touch for a really long time because of how many vulnerabilities I've come to know about right now. Like there's a 0 day in Skype, right? Right now there's a 0 day vulnerability in Skype that you can accomplish remote code execution on anybody who has a Skype client without them even answering the phone. Just by having your Skype online, somebody can take over your computer, right?
What?
And that's yeah, and there's no patch for it. So yeah, let's hope they do, right? But and that's just one. Or like for Cisco WebEx, right? So if you join a WebEx seminar, like telecom seminar, whoever is the provider of that seminar has the ability to run code on your system. And people usually don't think about these things in terms of what their security posture is. I'm betting a lot of people who are watching this right now are using Skype without even realizing that they're opening themselves to a whole host of attackers doing really bad things, or people joining conference calls without even realizing that they're giving complete access to their system and all the files and all the information that is on that system. So this kind of puts a different spin on how the world works, I suppose.
It's really alarming, I think. Is there some kind of list that you have found, or I'm so shocked that nobody said.
There's a mailing list called Full Disclosure that you can follow, where a lot of good information comes out on.
Okay.
But on top of that, a lot of this is in private chats or in private discussions with certain researcher groups, because not all of them want to publish the information to the Full Disclosure mailing list before it's been patched. Some of them do, but not all of them want to. And some of these are issues that are known, but for a reason or another, the vendor doesn't want to patch it. So there's a very real need to raise some noise about it, so people hear about it, because usually public pressure is what gets stuff done from consumer companies. So you need to sometimes force a company to do good with some level of antagonization or provoking, but it wouldn't have to be like that if we'd have a system set up where companies would realize the value of fixing things, and we'd have that. But there's bug bounties. For some companies, there's bug bounties, and there's private security research systems and setups. So we're moving towards a better place, but it's still going to take a while before we're there. It's not.
Okay, so should there be like some kind of cyber police that says to Skype that no, you can't get this so open?
That's a really good question as well, but then you'd have to have some sort of world police, right? Because who are you gonna prosecute if the criminal is in China, he's using a Brazilian server, and he's attacking a Finnish site? So, like, in which jurisdiction is that going to happen? Like, is it the Brazilians because that's the server that's where the attack traffic is coming from? Is it Chinese because that's what the guy is? Or is it the Finnish legislation because that's where the actual intrusion happened? And how do we get somebody from here to respond to those allegations? Like, it's a really complicated setup, and that's because the world is a really complicated place. So having a cyber police isn't necessarily the right answer, but maybe we could have some sort of global governing body on what is allowed in terms of consumer electronics or consumer services, that you'd have to be, I don't know, get some sort of like stamp of approval. This has undergone at least this level of testing, and this has this level of security. So you should feel confident understanding when you're using that I'm probably not in that much problems. And then maybe that might influence consumer decision and force all the other or the bad actors to start working accordingly. I don't know. I wish I had all the answers. I don't. I really don't.
So there are no any regulation at the moment.
Yeah, there's some, but there's very little. It's still such a young industry. It's if you think about it, most of the large security conferences hasn't been around for, like, at least in terms of security. DEF CON turned 25 this year. Black Hat turned 20. So Black Hat isn't even old enough to be legal to drink where it's organized, right? And where in Finland, we've had T2 for like 10 years or something, but that's been a really inclusive group. They're not really willing to share information. Now, so we saw a need for freer or more open information sharing in terms of security. And I think for a long time, security has been a field where, by the nature of the industry, you're supposed to be quiet. You're not supposed to say anything to anyone at any time, right? And that is counterintuitive to me. Like, the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. You can share some information, and actually there's a lot of information that benefits everyone that won't put you at risk for sharing. And there's a lot of regulation coming out in the US, especially in terms of data breach notifications. Now, with the GDPR in the EU, we're going to have the same sort of consumer protection for it. It's going to suck for companies because they're not even close to ready with dealing with GDPR. But it's going to make it better for consumers. And that's, again, one of those things that happens slowly towards some degree or some level of betterment of society, some level of betterment of community, or however you want to present it. And I think that's good. I think GDPR is good. It's going to suck, but it's good. Yeah.
And also in your seminar you were speaking about the safety and passwords and what a consumer can do. But so how big is actually the risk? Like I have Skype. Actually, I'm not online at the moment, happily. But how big is the risk that somebody wants to steal my stuff? Or should I be scared about it?
I think that's a question I get asked a lot, and I think that's kind of missing the point. It might not be targeting you specifically. It might be targeting your computer as a resource for something malicious. So if you have a vulnerable system and somebody just randomly scanning the entire internet and they find your vulnerable system, they take over your system, they can use that for sending spam, they can use that for distributing ransomware, they can use that for launching attacks towards other systems. So when ever the cyber police comes, they're going to take your computer and they're going to blame you, and you won't have any potential to actually defend yourself against it because it was actually your computer that was used. Like, hopefully whoever runs the forensic investigation realizes that somebody logged in from remote and was like remotely using your computer for bad stuff, but they might not. They might not have enough time to actually look into it. And you might just be scared enough to admit to some crime just so you get out of the scary policeman's aggressive behavior. And it's not. So it's not about being a target per se because of who you are. It's about the fact that you have a system that can be used as a resource for a lot of different things. And in most cases, breaches happen because of bad passwords. And that's like, I think that's like 90 or a bit over 90% of all major breaches is because somebody had a bad password at some point and they got some level of access, and because of that level of access, they got more access. They were able to move laterally or pivot into the system, get critical data, and then just run away with it, exfiltrate that data somewhere else. Or more commonly now, they get write access into your system and they actually encrypt all your files and demand a ransom. With NotPetya, that was like a couple of weeks ago, where it's not even ransomware, it's just a destructive weapon that's sent out with collateral damage. You just you have a nation state that just wants to target another nation because whatever reason. I'm not gonna get into attribution or politics here, but still, the entire scene is at a place where we have actual weapons of mass destruction being deployed on our open and free internet. And we're not having the discussion on whether or not this is something that we should seriously look into and trying to stop. We're just going, oh, well, they're bad guys doing bad stuff. So buy a new antivirus and have a better firewall. And it's not, I don't think that's good enough. I think we should be demanding more. I think we should really, really be pushing for having a more secure society, having better protections for our privacy, and having systems that are harder to hack. Like, it's never going to be unhackable. That's not going to happen. But being harder to hack would be good enough, because in a lot of cases it's an unpatched system. Somebody is still running Windows XP. I guarantee it that somebody is still running Windows XP here at Assembly. And if we take a computer and scan the network, I bet we're going to find so many vulnerable systems that we could probably cause a lot of damage here. maybe I shouldn't say that. Don't do that, guys. But the point is, it's hard to stay secure because of how long we've had this setup where you need to be a security specialist to be able to use your computer securely, instead of you having to be a security specialist to be able to use your computer insecurely. And I think we should change that. So it would be default by secure by default, and have a setup where instead of you needing to rely on the expertise of 1 million people to secure your own system, you would need to rely on the expertise of 1 million people to break into that system. So that's what I want to accomplish. That's what I want to do, and it's a lofty goal. It's an idealistic goal, and I'm actually trying to change the world. And it's I realize that I sound idealistic and naive when I say that, but it's still. I think it only takes one person to change the world, and I think everybody should try. That's maybe the gist of it, I suppose.
And what about, I was wondering, which passwords are the really important? I mean, if I make a username in some bookstore online, do I have to also make a really secure password on that one, or is the Gmail the most important, or?
I suppose it depends on your level of comfort with the information you're trying to secure with that password. It should be adapted to whatever you're trying to secure. So the more critical the data is, the better password you want to have. But essentially, I think there's no need not to have as good as a password as possible. When it says your password must be 4 to 25 characters, you should always go for the 25 characters, because that means whenever the site gets breached, everybody who has 4, 5, 6, 7, and all the way up to 24, their password is going to get cracked first before your 25-character passwords get cracked, which will give you time to change the password, and which will give you time to do something about whatever other systems or services you're using with the same password. Because that's the other thing people do. They use the same password for everything. Usually they even use the same username for everything. So because that's how people are. It's easy to remember, and it's what they want to do, right? And that's perfectly okay, but then you should have a really, really good password. So it's a complicated question. I don't have a really good answer. I'm just trying to understand it better. I think it would be really good if we could get out of password security altogether. So you wouldn't need a password at all. You could just use maybe like a USB key token, or a biometric thing, or but there's benefits and to everything essentially. But I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer, and I don't think we should be looking for the right answer. I think we should be looking for an answer that's less wrong.
Okay, so where can we follow you or see you next speaking? Or
You can find my socials on disobey.fi. You can find my Twitter at notquiteyou, and that's probably my public where I'm gonna post if I'm going to speak somewhere, or when I'm going to speak somewhere, if it's open to the public.
Okay, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And thank you for watching Fireside Chat. We will be seeing you soon.